afternoon, everyone. I, Chinmay Akhare, with my co-moderator Garima, welcome you all. On the behalf of whole family of IMA MSN Maharashtra, IMA JDN, and UNESCO Bioethics Student Program of India, on this workshop on innovation in medicine. We hope that Kalpana Research Methodology Workshop was a wonderful experience for you. We are now back with Kalpana 2.0, a workshop dedicated completely to innovation in healthcare and medicine. It will be a 3-day event with topics ranging from robotics and artificial intelligence to nuclear medicine and health informatics, with speakers from renowned institutions from India and abroad with a vision to ideate, innovate, and create. With this workshop of Kalpana team feels pleasure in giving such a platform to the medical students at which they can expand their vision of thoughts through the research-oriented workshops. I congratulate the whole team, the whole organizing team, and also I would like to appreciate our association partners, IMA JDN, India Student Program of UNESCO Chairing Bioethics, to show their immense support and vision into the idea. Over to you, Garima.
Thank you, Chinmay. So, first of all, thank you all for giving your prize time. Before the launch of the event, let me first acknowledge the presence of our eminent guest, Dr. Shiv Kumar Utre, sir, and also thanks to all the speakers and to sirs for spending out some of your valuable time for this session. Innovation for health opens a window onto the future while creating opportunities for the forging and strengthening relationships with a great variety of stakeholders in the healthcare arena. We decided to approach some of the well-known faculties in the field who would be able to explain us in detail, ranging from robotics and artificial intelligence to medicine and health informatics. This workshop will allow you to explore how great ideas are born, and you will leave with the process to ideate, innovate, and create. And we know that you all are very excited to learn. Once again, I would like to welcome everyone, and with this, I welcome our guest speaker, Honorable Professor Dr. Shiv Kumar Uttare sir. Shiv Kumar Uttare sir is a member of National Medical Council Commission and Medical Advisory Council. He is the president of Maharashtra Medical Council. He is a general surgeon and laparoscopic surgeon practicing in Mumbai and was professor of surgery and unit head at Grand Medical College, JJ Hospital. He is a fellow of International College of Surgeons and minimum access surgeon. He is undergraduate and postgraduate teacher and examiner of MUHS since the last 35 years and professor of IMA College of General Physician Practitioners, IMA headquarters. He was national coordinator of National Working Group, IMA headquarters, and was finance secretary, IMA Maharashtra State, and Central Working Committee member, IMA headquarters. He is recipient of BBMG Mahatma Gandhi Award at British Parliament, London in 2020 and recipient of IMA National Corona Warrior Award 2020. Recipient of IMA National Award for Lifelong Service to IMA in 2015 and has received President's Appreciation Award for Selfless Service from IMA Headquarters Delhi and IMA Maharashtra State for the past 6 years and various other prestigious awards as well. He has multiple papers published in national and international journals and has distinction of his paper being on the cover page of prestigious international journals Endoscopy. Now I would request Dr. Shiv Kumar Uttare sir to address all of us with his precious blessings and soulful words. Please, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Garima. I think you could have cut that a little bit short. So,
There was a lot we can't stop. Like there was a lot more to say, but this is just a small thing we could have added.
Anyway, thank you. So, Shiv Joshi, the national convener, Garima, Chinmay, Shreya, and of course, all my young friends from MSN and JDN, all over Maharashtra and I think all over India also. I think let me congratulate all of you for having thought about this workshop. Kalpana too, and I was just talking to Shiv and about Kalpana 1 also, and how successful that went, and the topics were completely different from what is happening in Kalpana 2. Even the theme that you have used, ideate, innovate and create. Let me tell you, I have been in medical education for almost about 4 decades. And for 4 decades, we were doing the same thing over and over again. What I learned as a medical student and as a resident, the same thing was being taught over all this time to the next generations. And somewhere we also felt the need for changing this whole system of education. And why we require to change this whole system of education is because the whole system of future medical practice has changed. And there are a lot of things that we do not learn during our formative days in the medical colleges, which we have to learn actually when we are in practice. So I think what you are doing over here today, of introducing this topic about ideate, innovate and create to the medical students right in their formative days, is something which is absolutely laudable, and I congratulate all of you for having thought about this and going ahead with this. Now, having spoken, I think I must thank you also for having called me over here, because I belong to the older generation, and maybe I may also learn something when I hear all the speakers. And let me tell you, even the speakers I was just talking to you all before this session started, that when I saw the list of the speakers, they are the who's who in their field. And congratulations that you could get all these speakers on board, because it's very difficult to get, it's easy when you're in the medical field to get your teachers or your professors to talk. But when you go to all these doyens who are there in the other fields and make them talk to you, I think that is something great. And I'm sure that the whole new generation will learn a lot from you. I have been involved also in what the new concept of digital health is going to come. And we have had sessions with Delhi, NRHM, with the Niti Aayog and everything. And I'm finding exactly what we had discussed over there. The whole thing is being discussed by you at this stage. So what basically this digital health means? Creative process of generating, developing and communicating new ideas. This is what is going to be as far as the digital health is concerned. And I think this COVID era which has come, I always like to look at the positive aspects of any disaster. COVID era is definitely a disaster. But then it has taught us a lot of things. It has taught us how we should change. It has taught us how the new ideas should be brought forward. Because life is going to change for everybody. It's not a question of only our profession, but all professions, the life is going to change for the future, post-COVID. And it is high time that we as medical professionals, who are so much used to being in a cocoon, we have our own life, our own practice, our own family, and rarely we try to get out of this cocoon. And today what you are achieving by these sessions is trying to break this cocoon and come out in a world which I feel, as compared to the medical field, and when I talk about medical field, I talk about the clinical aspect of the medical field. I'm not talking about the new inventions and innovatives, especially in the instrumentations which has come, because that has also come from the engineering field, not from our field, unfortunately. So you are trying to break this cocoon and bring us out, I think. So congratulations for that also. Now, when we talk about ideas, or what you said, your first part is ideate. And the importance of such workshops is extremely important when you start this process of ideate. Because ideas have to flow in from multiple sources. You know, you may get hundreds and thousands of ideas. And what you're supposed to do is filter out from these ideas, and a few ideas which are going to be practically possible to follow in futures are supposed to be separated out and then concentrate on that. But then the first process, of course, is getting everybody to put in their ideas. And the most important aspect, you know, you have three phases as far as this convention is there. That is ideate, innovate, and create. But the most important aspect is ideate. Because unless you think of something, you will never go one step ahead and do that thing. So the first step is thinking. And this comes out with ideates. And what I feel is it is the younger generation like you who are going to come out with the new ideas. Because the older generation has already fixed ideas. You know, we don't like to change our ideas. We don't like to change but with this new era, which is going to come post-COVID era, definitely new ideas have to come forward. We have to follow what these new ideas, take the practical aspects from these new ideas, and then go ahead if we want to go on practicing in the future. So what this workshop is going to do is, it's going to help all these students to ask the right questions at the right time. And it is only when you ask questions, I feel you will learn and we will learn. I still remember my education days where we used to get scared to, you know, teachers and our seniors. We used to just imbibe whatever they are saying. And that was how the medical education used to take place in the past. But then definitely things are changing. Even as far as the new digital health which has come, we have discussed a lot on how medical education should also change in the future. Not only that, the national education policy is coming into place. And I think by 2030 and 2040, the whole education system is going to be overhauled. Though we have some reservations as far as the medical education aspect of education policy. Let me tell you, overall, if you see right from the primary school up to your degree schools, whatever has been mentioned in the national education policy is something which is completely different from what the education has been in India till date. It is going to completely revolutionize the whole education aspect. And medical education also becomes part and parcel of that. And when I read the whole your whole brochure, I saw that there is a lot of emphasis even on research. And let me tell you, in the national education policy, the government is also going to concentrate a lot on research. They have made a complete new new body, which is going to be complete. It's a national body which is going to be completely concentrating on research. Not only that, there is going to be huge funding for this research also. What we have seen in our medical practice and our medical education is that we used to fall back because we used to rarely ever get any funding for our research. Even anything new you want to do, it was very, very difficult in medical practice to get the research, like how it is being done in, say, IT, or it is done in the pharmaceutical industries and all. Because unless you get funding, you cannot do any research. Unless you do research, you cannot get anything new or innovative in your medical practice in the future. So I think it's an ideal time and correct time for you to introduce these subjects to the youngsters, to the budding doctors of the future, because you can today shift from clinical practice to doing research in medicine, because there is going to be an avenue open for you, which is going to be supported by the government. And of course, once we finish our education, we also think about how we are going to earn our daily bread. So that is also been taken care of by the government. So you can concentrate on research. Those of you who are basically, your tilt is towards research more than the clinical practice. And these brainstorming sessions that you all are going to do is definitely going to be productive, effective, and what I believe is whenever you learn something, it should be in a fun way of learning. And that is what you are putting forward to the newer generation. Our learning was never fun. It was by rote, it was forced upon us. And we used to just go and hear what the professors say in the colleges and then go and read the same thing from the books. It was never fun. And I think the way you are going to present it in your Kalpana is going to be a fun way of learning something new. So as they call it, that entertainment should be there whenever you gain new knowledge also. And that is what you are doing. So great as far as that is concerned. Then of course the next part comes as far as innovation is concerned. So once you ideate something and you fix upon something, you require to go one step ahead. And that is when your innovation aspect comes into play. So innovation is nothing but, introduction of something new, which is not there up till now. And there are new ways of not only getting new aspects, but also getting new information. And this is what is going to help you tomorrow as far as medical education is concerned. I remember our medical education, our teachers were the fixed teachers who were there in that particular medical college. Beyond that, we did not have any teachers during our time. But today, with especially the IT industry boom that is happening today, what we are talking to each other from all over, here is an aspect where tomorrow a teacher sitting in, say, Delhi can teach students who are, say, even in a small place or remote place like Gadchiroli. And that is the beauty of taking into technology into your medical education. So it opens up a huge aspect where you can learn, hear from those who have gained experience and expertise in that particular subject from wherever they are, not only in your town or your medical college, but not anywhere in the state, anywhere in the nation or international also. And that I feel is what should be medical education in the future, not restricted to only those professors who are there present in the institution, but the knowledge should come from all over the experts wherever they are. And this is what is going to happen as far as the innovations are concerned.
Hello.
So what you have to do is, after innovating these new aspects, creation is...
Sonia, I'm busy right now. I have a session going on. I'm sorry. Can you call me at 4:30?
And for this creation, I think you have to tie up with the engineering people. You have to tie up with those who are sitting, in the government offices, especially in the offices of the public health system, and then come out with whatever you have pinpointed that requires to be taken forward. So that is going to be there in the future. And I have spoken about medical education basically because you all are students. But let me tell you, even in the future, the whole of the medical practice is going to change. We are seeing it happening today in the COVID era. And post-COVID era, definitely medical practice is going to change. I see some of the subjects which you have kept is like artificial intelligence. I was in a session where, there was a debate on artificial intelligence and what effect it's going to have in the future of medicine. And let me tell you, and this was by the medical students, by the way, a lot of things I myself learned in the debate when I was hearing these students. Your whole artificial intelligence is going to change the way you are going to practice your clinical medicines in the future. Today we say clinical practice where you actually examine the patient. You hear for suppose you use a simple stethoscope and you hear for the respiratory sounds, the heart sounds, and you are supposed to diagnose it. Maybe tomorrow a time may come where you just put a probe on the chest of that patient Those sounds are picked up by the probe and it goes onto the cloud, and the artificial intelligence will be able to tell you exactly what is wrong with this patient. It has happened in the COVID era, let me tell you, because in the initial phase of the COVID era, getting the RT-PCR tests were very, very difficult, almost next to impossible because all the kits were imported. At that time, there was a revolutionary method by which taking a simple digital X-ray, putting it on the cloud, the artificial intelligence could tell you what is the possibility of this X-ray of being COVID positive or not. And let me tell you, we had quite a lot of good positive results out of that also. The percentage of results were good. So when artificial intelligence comes in, you have to integrate it with your clinical practice. Because maybe a time may come where this artificial intelligence may be able to diagnose a condition much more better than an individual doctor. I'm not saying that it is going to replace the individual doctor, but definitely you can make use of artificial intelligence to a patient proper, and not only that, but help you in the future management of these patients. So telemedicine is coming in. Already, I think Maharashtra Medical Council was the first council to allow you telemedicine practice, which was not there before, it was under the so-called unethical aspects of practice. And then subsequently, of course, even the MCI came out with the telemedicine, allowing you to do telemedicine. So again, in telemedicine, you will have to take a lot of help from your engineering friends if you want to really carry it forward as far as telemedicine is concerned. And we have to go on learning something different from what actual you used to touch a patient, talk to a patient physically when you go on to telemedicine. And this is also going to be a huge learning process for us, which we have never ever done in our formative days or in our clinical practice. Then the main aspects is going to come is the robotics, which is going to come. Robots slowly are going to take over. AI and robots both are going to take over a lot of our medical aspects of our practice in the future. So all these things, I think you have taken into consideration when you have decided on having this workshop. So I would say the COVID era has come as a boon to the medical practitioners, because today they have started thinking beyond what they have learned of their medical practice during their formative days. And today we are also as seniors, we are learning new things that we require to adopt as far as our practice is concerned, and which you have already started doing. I know MCI is a little bit late. MCI, what you have done today, I think MCI should have done long back. Brought this aspect into your medical practice. We have been after the MCI to do that. Maybe once the National Medical Commission comes into full force, we may be able to push for all these new things to come up in your regular curriculum, which you have tried to do by holding this workshop for all the students all over India. So there is definitely going to be a shift in the process of medical education, both and medical practice in the future. And I think the first baby steps you have started taking by introducing these workshops to all the medical students, and that is the ideal age to start. If you had started this, or if I had tried to have the same workshop with the senior members of our faculty, I don't think I would have got more than 20-30 people attending this workshop. Because number one, we unfortunately do not like to change with the times. And number two, we do not understand half the things that today you will be talking because we are not exposed to the new technologies and what you all are going to talk. I think once you are finished with this workshop and you all are successful, I think we should bring it even to the oldies like us and try to make us also change, try to make us accept what you all are going to be deciding on today during these workshops with all the experts who are going to help you in this. So before I end, congratulate all of you. I was very happy when I got the call and said, "Sir, you should be there for this session." I didn't know what the session would be. Let me tell you, once Garima sent me your brochure, I had to myself go and learn a lot about a lot of things that were there in that brochure. And then I learned that the change that you are going to bring today by this workshop is going to help the future generation of medical doctors. So congratulate all of you. And I think all the speakers also, I must congratulate for having accepted, and they are going to come and talk in these sessions today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow. And I hope you go on bringing such new innovations, which unfortunately, as I said, is a job of MCI, and they have not been able to do that. And you all have brought it into the forefront. Maybe MCI may learn from what you have done and try to get new things into place tomorrow. So thank you very much for having called me today, and it was a great, great pleasure. As I always tell everybody, when I talk to my students and the youngsters, I become 10 years younger, and that's what keeps me pushing. So thank you very much for calling me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And this is all because of your blessings and support that we are able to do this. Without all the supports from our seniors, we can't do anything. And this is some learning from you. And based on that learning, we are using some bit more ideas that how we can modify it. But the first is thing that we have learned from you, and based on that learning only, we are trying to modify it. So that is more important for us. So moving on to, thank you so much, sir, for joining. And then now moving on to the first speaker for the session. First of all, the innovation for health is a unique opportunity to be a part of the dynamic interface between academia, healthcare providers, and technological innovators to be actively participate in the bright future of the life sciences industry. Now, with this, I would like to introduce to the first speaker of the day, Dr. Rohan Khandelwal. The topic for the session is taking the path less traveled, helping healthcare startups along with the clinical practice. Dr. Rohan Khandelwal, sir, he is a MS, MRCS, and FIBT, is the principal breast cancer surgeon at CK Bella Hospital, Gurgaon. In addition to the heading high volume breast unit, Dr. Rohan has been actively involved in teaching undergraduate students since last 12 years. He is currently associated with Marrow and organizes his classes under the banner Smash Surgery. Dr. Rohan Khandelwal has been associated with multiple healthcare startups, namely Marrow, teaching platform for UG students, Curify, India's largest doctor networking app. He served as their medical director for 2 years, medical director for UE Life Sciences, where they have been developed a low-cost device, breast exam for breast cancer detection. We are really thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. And now over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Garima. I hope you can hear me. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
So thank you very much for having me over. I'm grateful that you invited me for this talk. And thank you, Garima, Shreya, Chinmay, Akshay, and Dhruv for reaching out. And it's always a pleasure talking to students. And, Sir has given a wonderful, Dr. Shivkumar has given a wonderful introduction. And I think so he's set the base for the discussions to really start. And again and again, sir has mentioned that, out of the box thinking is required now. The same old curriculum has to be given up. And until and unless we think out of the box and we let our medical students ideate, innovate, we can't move forward. Otherwise, we'll just be stuck in that bubble of plain, simple clinical practice. And I just went through the bio of other speakers. My achievements are minuscule in front of them. But I would just like to talk about my journey. And by this talk, I would just like to emphasize that We don't need to take just the clinical path or just do clinical practice. There are other avenues open for all of us as well. And there are opportunities out there. It's just that we need to know about those opportunities, and we need to have the courage to walk on the path less traveled. So with that, I would just like to tell you that currently I'm a breast cancer surgeon, but in addition to that, I'm involved with many other things, some of which Garima mentioned. Now, as Dr. Shivkumar mentioned that, I come from a family of doctors. So my father, my mother, they went through the same curriculum. When my brother joined MBBS, same curriculum. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, mine was the first batch at Safdarjung Hospital and VMMC College in Delhi. And because ours was the first batch, there were certain teachers who uh, who said, look, okay, we are going to teach you the traditional things, but in addition to that, we want you to do research as well. We want you to publish papers as well. And the sky should be the limit for you people. Don't restrict yourself to the regular curriculum and just those entrance exams. So that was a great platform for us. And from second year onwards, I was grateful to have a mentor who introduced me to the field of research. And unlike research which is being promoted in colleges right now, research unfortunately ends at that STS program which ICMR does, the short term research program. And it should not, because research is something which should be ongoing, and it should culminate in a publication. You should publish your research, and that is something which we really need to encourage amongst medical students in our country. So two things: number one, look out for a mentor in your institute, in your college. Now, this is not an easy task. Not everyone in your college would be interested in doing research or guiding you or publication. So find an ideal mentor, and then you also need to talk to them, be in regular touch with them, choose a topic, and then continue your research. Don't look at short term objectives like, okay, I'll get this scholarship or I'll get a certificate. Don't look at those things. You should be looking to publish that research. Okay, so that's number one. That was one very good thing which happened with me in undergraduation. The second thing which I feel the medical student network is now taking that forward really well are the conferences which you're conducting, are the interactions which you're conducting amongst medical students. When I was a medical student, these weren't happening. So in final year, I submitted my research and I went to Egypt to present my paper. And that was the first time when I interacted with medical students all across the globe. So one very positive, good change is these conferences which you people are organizing, and please continue doing them, because this really encourages students to come forward, talk to each other, know about things happening in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world. And this is the stepping stone towards more ideas being developed by you people. So please continue doing that. Now, another thing which I would like to tell to students is that you have time during your MBBS curriculum as well. It's not all studies. You do get time. So please try to find out a hobby or something which interests you. And there are so many startups, there are so many companies who are looking for young minds who are in the medical field, and they want you to come and work with them, do an internship with them, spend some time with them. Please do that, because you'll get to know what is happening in the outside world. As Dr. Shivkumar mentioned, that the innovation right now is happening from the engineering side, and then it is percolating its way into the medical field. So all the innovation is happening by engineers, and we are utilizing it. But why not doctors getting involved in that innovation part, in that development part, right? I can think of a lot of advantages. Number one, the time to develop that device would be less because you're already getting inputs from a doctor. So, you can brainstorm and you can do away with the bugs which you might encounter later on when you put it to clinical use. Also, as doctors, you'll be exposed to how these people methodically go about producing a device or designing a device, and those are things which we need to learn. I'll again give you an example. So in my internship, after finishing my internship, I did 3 months of rotations at Harvard, Cornell, and Hopkins. And after going there, I thought that, look, oh, they're just seeing 10 cases in a day. We see 50 cases in 3 hours. So our clinical skills, our clinical knowledge is much better than theirs. But what I really learned in those 3 months was that how methodical those people are, right? They will start on time. There the case used to get induced at 7:30. The anesthetist used to put in the tube, the surgeon had to be in the theater, and they were done with their work by 5 o'clock, and then they used to go home and they used to spend time with their family and pursue their hobbies. Unfortunately, in India, we like to burden ourselves with work, and we think that the longer we stay busy, the better that is. So that's not true. You can also, if you're efficient, you can finish your work on time and then give more time to your hobbies and uh, ideas which are brewing inside your mind. You can then work on them better, right? So that is something, again, which I want you people to inculcate in your daily routine. Take out some time to think about other ideas other than study as well. Okay. So, okay, somebody's asked a question, how can we get that kind of internship? So externships are very common. These are common amongst people who are preparing for USMLE, and you can apply to these institutes and you can go there for a month or 2 months, and you can work in a designated department. It's an online application, and you can go ahead and look at it on internet. So that was regarding my first exposure to publication, research. Another thing which I would encourage all of you to do is at least try to publish, right? And there are multiple online courses. BMJ conducts a course on paper writing, on scientific paper writing. And I feel all of you as undergraduates should do that course. Otherwise, the first time you write something scientific is when you're writing your thesis. And that too, you're copying from multiple places and you don't even end up publishing that. So please don't make that mistake. Now that you have these opportunities to interact with so many doctors and people from all across the country, at least utilize their expertise in learning some new skills during your undergraduate years. Okay. Fine. So moving on to the next aspect about my work in the various startups and what have I learned from them and how have I contributed to those startups while still carrying out my clinical practice. So in second year of post-graduation, I was very clear that I just wanted to do breast cancer surgery. That was because of personal reasons. I had family members who'd suffered from it. So I just wanted to focus on one branch, and I wanted to provide the best of care in that one branch. Okay, so very clear mindset I had that I just wanted to do breast surgery. Now, once I finished my fellowships, I had already started teaching with various institutes, and after my first job as a consultant at Max Healthcare, when I decided to start my own breast center or breast unit, that's when Curify, which is a doctor's networking app, these three IITians from IIT Delhi, they approached me and said, look, we want you to come on board and help us in developing this networking app amongst doctors, right? So again, it was an opportunity which required me to give time to them every day in addition to my clinical practice. So, when I discussed this with my parents and with my brother, they all said, look, don't divulge from your clinical practice. Your clinical practice should be your main thing. and these opportunities will come in the future, but first establish yourself as a good clinician and as a surgeon. So after having discussed this extensively with them, finally, when I spoke to my wife, Dr. Ila, she said, look, follow what you think is right, and take decisions which you think will pay dividends in the future. So again, one thing which I want to tell you is that don't always go by the traditional thinking pattern, right? Think out of the box. Again, I would also like to tell you this because after having counseled so many students, a lot of times what happens is that a student wants to become a surgeon or wants to become an orthopedician, but when they get a rank in their entrance exam, they end up choosing radiology or dermatology just because their rank is high. And trust me, I've seen these students struggling. I have 3 juniors of mine who are all radiologists, and they all have been messaging me that, sir, can you please introduce us to some startup? We are bored of our clinical practice now, and we want to work for a startup. So please take a decision. Please choose a branch which you're passionate about. Don't just go by the rank. Okay, let me just answer a few questions and then I'll continue. So the app I was talking about was Curify. That was a doctor's networking app. Can I go for some, Ritika is asking, can I go for some research? I'm a final year student. Why not, Ritika? That's what I'm saying. So research can start in whichever year you are in, right? It should continue, right? Don't just stop at a sample size of 20 or 30. Collect a sample size which is good enough for you to publish it, right? So again, identify a mentor, choose a topic, and persist in collecting data regarding that topic. Okay. Right. So Dhruv is also correct. Nature has also started scientific writing masterclasses. So anyone can do these masterclasses online, and it is really helpful. It will teach you a lot of things. It will teach you how are the references written whenever you're writing a chapter or you're writing a paper. All these things you'll get to know when you do these master classes. Okay. So yes, so I finally decided to join Curify, and every day after my clinical practice, I used to spend 2 to 3 hours in their office with these IITians, and they were all 4 to 5 years younger than me. But trust me, it was such a good learning experience for me, because again, the way in which they used to approach a problem was very different from the way how a doctor approaches a problem, right? So it was good to know their side of problem solving as well, and that has really helped me in my clinical practice over the years, right? So that was one. The second thing which was very good when I started working in a startup was the openness amongst teams, and not being a very old schooled hierarchical system where you could talk to anyone. You could go and talk to the founder. You can go and talk to the guy who's just doing data entry. He can come up to you. He can ask you anything. So this also is something which we need to learn, because gradually the world is moving towards that. Even in medical practice, gradually more openness and the the medical system is also becoming more liberal now, and this teaches you some very important communication and interpersonal skills which are useful for you when you're interacting with patients. A lot of times medical legal cases arise because of lack of communication between the medical team and the patients. So working in different environments exposes you to these interpersonal skills, and also it teaches you the value of communication, and that will help you in your clinical practice as well. Okay. So I was with Curify for 2 years, and I helped them go from a doctor base of 10,000 to 2 lakh. And that's when I left the organization, because my clinical practice had become very busy by then. But it was a great learning experience. And there are many such organizations which are there who want doctors to come and work for them part-time or full-time. And I feel that you people should give it a chance and explore these opportunities. And to see whether you fit into that kind of a working environment or not, I would recommend that during your summer holidays, just do an internship in a startup or some healthcare organization, and that would be a good starting point for you people. Okay. Right. Let me just address a few queries. Where can I submit a blog? Had submitted to BMJ, got rejected since they accept papers only. So Aditya, blogs are different from a scientific paper, right? There's a huge difference. If you write blogs, then I would recommend that you have a blog of your own, right? And you can use WordPress or Blogger to start your own blog. BMJ would only accept scientific papers and doesn't accept blogs. Sahil is asking, can we write new hypotheses based on previous research papers using their mentioned data is acceptable? So Sahil, do you mean that you want to do a meta-analysis of already given studies which are there? That can be done. If you already have studies, you can pull in the data of those studies and you can write a meta-analysis, right? But you really need to be a subject matter expert when you're analyzing this data and when you're writing it down. Um, if you're writing a totally new hypothesis, you need to back it up with data. So you need to do data collection, you need to do proper research regarding that. So Anisha, I can recommend a few places to you. What I'll do is at the end of my talk, I'll send that list across to the organizers and they can circulate it amongst you people. Aditya is saying, as a private medical college student, we don't get enough patients for conducting research. Well, Aditya, I think so. That's again, not true. There are always ways and means how you can collect data for research. Nobody is restricting you to just that institute. Research can be of many types. You can even you know rather than just doing it on symptomatic patients, you can also do it on the attendants who are coming, so you also get an asymptomatic group along with that. So it all depends on what research are you trying to do, what is the topic, and then you choose your then you get to know what is your subject base. Safi has raised a very important point, and I would really like to address that. I'm a student from a peripheral college, and we don't get mentors here. Well, Safi, to be very honest with you, even in a place like Safdarjung, you would be surprised to know that in such a big hospital, only 10 people had international publications to their name, right? So you don't need to find a whole lot of them. You just need to find one mentor, right? If you search hard, you will find somebody in your college. Supposing you don't, that is the reason of having these meetings and these events and conferences. As Dr. Shiv Kumar mentioned, you are not in a small bubble of, say, just your college or just Maharashtra. You can reach out for help to anyone in any part of the country now. So utilize these conferences to know which are the people who are doing research, which have the same mindset, and you can reach out to them and they can also help you out. Dhruv, I'll let you know. I'll share the list of companies which I know, and I will probably ask them to share the links as well, where you people can apply for such internships. Free online resources available for medical entrepreneurship. Praneeth, I'm not aware of that, but there are a lot of books which you can read, and you can talk to these people. So many of these entrepreneurs are going to talk after me. It's best to connect with them, spend some time with them, and learn about their journey. That is really going to be enlightening for you. Okay, right. Does Saloni saying, does ICMR have more value than other research done? So Saloni, right now ICMR just has an STS program. It's called the Short Term Scholarship Program, which is just for 2 months. So the research time given is only 2 months, which ICMR, and then ICMR gives you a certificate for that. But that's what I'm saying. Don't do research for a certificate. Do research or work on something so that you can publish it, right, and make a difference and learn from that publication. So continue doing that research. It may or may not be linked with ICMR. Okay. Sanya is saying, how do we go forward if we have an idea in our head? Whom do we approach? How do we go forward? Excellent question. So Sanya, I have 3 juniors from Safdarjung who, after their internship, did not appear for the entrance exams, and they had an idea in their mind. So initially, they registered their startup and they started working on it. They applied for so that is what you do. You have an idea, you create a team, you start working on it, create a framework, right? After that, the next hurdle is to get initial funding for that idea and to find people who will back you for that idea. So there are many such angel investors out there. There are a lot of startup and you can propose your idea to them, and people will help you out with not only funding but also with the technical know-how of how to move forward. Sharon is asking, are quality improvement projects and audits recommended for an MBBS student as an intern? I would say that audits should be taught to all undergraduate students, and two things which I really feel, 3 things in fact, which should be part of the curriculum. I think so more importance on practical statistical implementation, and how to interpret statistics, and how to utilize formulas in a more practical manner. That is one thing. Number 2 is of course scientific paper writing, and third is of course audits and a continuous feedback loop, which not only helps you in becoming better clinicians, but this feedback loop would also help you in your studies, right? So these things should definitely be there, and I think so MCI should look at these things. Can we publish a PG thesis before submission? I mean, until and unless if you've collected all your data and if you've reached to a conclusion, then of course you can publish it. There's no problem. But I think so. You need to first collect your data. So yes, Plexus MD is also a good networking app, and you can look at the courses which Anisha is mentioning there. Okay. Right. Let me just talk about my next aspect of my journey, and then I'll answer these questions as well. So once I left Curify, I was focusing on my clinical practice, and that's when I met the second company I worked. I'm still working for them. That company is called UE Life Sciences, and we developed a low-cost breast cancer screening tool called iBreast Exam. And the founder was Mihir Shah. So he had a family member who had breast cancer, and he developed this device which was as big as a computer mouse, and you could just take it to the periphery as well. It got paired with your phone, and you could find out if there was a lump in the breast or not. So ever since the first model of that device, we are currently on the third model, and we've made tremendous improvement. And in fact, in Maharashtra, they did a project with the government where they screened more than 60,000 ladies with this device. So this was a clear link with my clinical practice. And again, the startup which I worked for earlier was more of a networking startup, but this was a hardcore device-based company. So, to get involved with them right from the process regarding what all features do we want in the device, how are they implemented. And one thing very important for me as a doctor was to learn from these engineers when to say no, right? Otherwise, as doctors, we say, look, this should be there, I want this in the device, I want this in the device. But when you work with these engineers, they think logically. They say, okay, we've taken your inputs, but these two things cannot be there, and these are the reasons why these cannot be there. So that is a very big learning for us, because as doctors, sometimes we start thinking, look, we've studied so many years, I am the subject matter expert, how come these people are not listening to me, right? So one very important thing to, when you work in startups and when you work with uh, engineers in the startup space, is that you can't carry a huge ego with you. And only when you're not doing that, when you don't carry this ego, then only you learn from these people. Okay, so that is another big learning for me, and again, it has helped me in my clinical practice, right? So the same thing, when to say no to a patient, when to say no for a surgery, that is that, I think so, that has got reinforced after working in the second startup. So that was the second startup which I was helping out. uh, in parallel, I also teach on Marrow, which is again an educational platform. And given the COVID times where education has moved to the online domain, um, startups like Marrow and other startups are really helping students in in staying in touch with their subject even when colleges aren't functioning. And I was so happy that I got a message from a professor in a private medical college, and they are now being asked to take classes online through Zoom or other applications. And he said that he watched all my videos on Marrow, and that's how he got to know how to teach online, how to go about connecting with the student, what to write, what not to write. So that's also been a great learning journey, my transition from offline to online teaching, and how it has really taken off in the COVID era. Right. Let me just address a few more questions. I guess a lot of questions are there. Shravya is asking, I'm a first year MBBS student and I've also published my work on self-examination in ICMR STS. My proposal has been accepted, but the report is still needs to be prepared. Yes, so sure, Shravya, you can reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you out. I'm an intern, right time, or should I wait for PG to start research and publishing? Well, Muskan, if you're preparing for your entrance exam, if you're going to appear for your entrance exam this year, then you should start in PG, but don't defer it. As soon as you start, as soon as you become a first year PG, get involved in some kind of research work, go and attend conferences, publish your work there. Okay. And one more thing which I want to tell all of you, right? Don't think that your research is less important than other people's work. Everyone's work is important, right? There is a place for each and every type of research in medical practice, right? So don't think that my research was on a topic which is not very relevant, and how will people respond to it. Don't get deterred by those things. Okay. Arushi, how does a post-internship student get involved in research? Well, research in post-graduation, again, you have to find a mentor. That is very important. And that is also, I think so, something which doesn't happen overnight. So you need to really search for people who can guide you and, introduce you to research, data collection, and how to write papers after that. Yes, if you've got a certificate from ICR, you can still go ahead and publish your research. We've already said Nature has this course on scientific paper writing, research. BMJ, student segment of BMJ also has this course. So you can look at those sites. Okay, Navpreet is a potential USMLE aspirant. I'm applying for research in US related to artificial intelligence in medical imaging. Will my experience open up more opportunities if I come back to India after residency? Absolutely. So look, whatever experience you gain abroad, that is always beneficial when you come back. So don't ever think that, you know, I should only do a thing if that directly helps me in the future. It's good to do some few things which might not be related to your field, and you never know in future how they get intertwined with your clinical practice. So absolutely go ahead with that. Also, before the start of this session, I read two or three comments by students where you know, they had written that all the branches would be replaced by AI. Radiology and pathology are going to become obsolete. Well, my 2 cents on that point regarding radiology and pathology becoming obsolete. So AI is there to stay. It's a great tool, and in breast imaging there is there's a computer aided detection CAD, which is done for mammographic screening. So that is already there. But having said that, you can't take away the human element when you're dealing with medicine, right? A computer cannot sign off a report. Computer will not be answerable in court. So don't think that these branches are completely going to be place that work which was requiring a lot of manual labor, which was time consuming. So if it's saving time for you, you can focus on other things in that branch and develop them. Don't think that a computer is going to completely replace you. That's not going to happen, at least not for the next 20-25 years. Radiotherapy technologists. So radiotherapy units are increasing with the increasing incidence of cancer. Radiotherapy is a great branch. Nuclear medicine, you already have a talk on nuclear medicine tomorrow. That's also a great branch for the future. Harsh, you can publish it. It depends on which subject have you done it in, and you can ask your guide. He can tell you which journals you can publish your data in. Aditi, public health research is so if you know, a lot of times students ask me which are the branches which you think are going to do extremely well in the next 10 years or 15 years. So 3 branches which I feel are really going to be the top runners in the next 10-15 years are psychiatry, oncology, and public health, PSM, right? These are 3 very important branches, and tremendous scope in all 3 of them. You have so many public health institutes coming up, so you can always work as faculty there. Research can be done in the domain of public health. Anushka is asking scope of MS in general surgery after general surgery. Anushka, please, there is a video which I've recorded on my YouTube channel. You can have a look at that. I don't think so that it is linked to this talk. How do we find an angel investor? There are a lot of you know, sites which are there, and there are these events which are organized where you go and pitch your idea, and people will help you out. There are, if you just do a Google search, you can find a lot of these places where angel investors, you can connect with angel investors. Okay, Sri Lakshmi saying, I've conducted a survey and written a paper on cancer awareness. Which medical journals do you suggest I should try publishing it in? So Sri Lakshmi, you can reach out to me, just share what you have written and I'll share my email ID towards the end of the talk, and just send it to me, and then I can help you out with it. How do you do research in radiation oncology? Kiran, you need to go to the radiation oncology department, and you need to find somebody there who can suggest a topic, and you can then start doing research on that. Yes, so that was my journey. I am still working with a lot of startups in addition to running a dedicated breast cancer unit. And even if I devote 1 to 1.5 hours to these startups on a daily basis, I guess it really helps me to unwind and to get away from the hectic clinical practice. So after a hectic day, when I focus on these things, just refreshes my mind and gives me new ideas, which I inculcate in my clinical practice as well. So in the end, I would just like to say that don't be afraid to take a path less traveled, and you never know how big it becomes in future. So we always start small, keep on working, be honest to yourself, and sky is the limit. Will research methodologies be same even after lockdown? Absolutely. Shreya, I'll share that. Can you pitch around a few ideas in surgery where we can focus our research on? So Aditya, that really depends on which place you're working on, what all work is happening there, and then we can help you out. Yes, so I guess Sanya, somebody has written something very important, that you need to have proof of concept. Say 5 6 years back, people were giving money even based on an idea, but now investors have also become more mature, and they also want you to have proof of concept. They want you to have a certain number of users on your platform. They see the traction, and then only they will fund you. So right, so I guess that's all from my side. This is my email ID for anyone who wants to reach out to me, and on YouTube you can just type my name, Rohan Khandelwal, and you can have a look at the videos there. Prakriti is asking, how can we trust a particular person with our ideas? Many mentors want to get hold of data and publish it as their own. Uh, well, Prakriti, not everyone is the same. And, there I personally feel that when you choose a teacher, when you choose a mentor, you do have to have faith in them. Initially, you need to surrender yourself to that teacher or that guru to learn from them. If you always think that they're going to steal your idea, then I think so you'll never move forward with that research. Yes, sometimes you can have a bad experience, but not all the time. Not everyone is the same. And when you write a paper, multiple names go on a paper, right? If you're the one who has initiated it, if you've done all the work, um, teachers now are pretty understanding, and they would let you be the first author. I have experienced this in my medical career as well. Of course, the first time, second time, when you're just a minor part of that study, your name would probably be third, fourth in the list, right? But it's still a publication. But as you become a more integral part of that research, you can write your name as the first author after having a discussion with your mentor. So not everyone is the same, and I really don't agree. I mean, you have to have faith in somebody. You have to trust your mentor. Okay, right. Tanishk, I didn't get your question. What about the form for certificate? Didn't understand what you're trying to ask. Ayush is saying how to manage PG preparation regarding in concerning new guidelines of NMC. Well, I would say that PG preparation is not done in 1 year. It is a continuous process. You have to build concepts over the years, right from first year till final year. So please don't think that just in 1 year you can crack the exam and you can do everything. I personally think it's a continuous process. So from day one, focus on building concepts. PhD after MBBS in India, of course, I've heard very few people doing that. You can, of course, in America, you can do that along with your residency. You can do a combined PhD as well. Seerath is asking a good question. How much time does it take for one to publish a research? Good question. So, Seerath, there are certain journals where the entire publication process might take up to 6 months. So you send them the first draft, then you get it with you. It's a peer-reviewed thing. So reviewers are going to point out some mistakes. Then you make changes. You send it again. So it can take in good journals up to 6 months. In an average, I would say it takes up to 2 months. But it's only the first draft which you're writing which takes the maximum time. After that, subsequently, the time required is less. You have to and your question that will it hamper with your studies, so you have to take out time for all these things. It cannot be that today I'm just going to write a paper, I'm not going to study, and tomorrow I'm just going to study, not work on this. So take out time for everything, and you have to it's a balancing act, and if you do these things, you learn time management as well. Tejaswini, according to me, I think so. When you're a second, third year student, reach out to these startups, do some sort of internship or voluntary work for them during your summer holidays. And once you're done with your internship, that is the time, if you're very serious about working in these startups, you can approach them for a full-time job or a part-time job. Krishna, externships can be done at various places, but you have to still complete your 1 year of internship in India. The application process usually takes around 3 to 6 months when you apply to places in America for your externship, and it is in a particular branch. So you need to decide which branch are you interested in, where you want to do this externship, and apply 3 to 6 months in advance. There are a lot of sites. You can just Google this. Otherwise, just send me an email. I'll help you out with it. Radiation oncology in America residency is extremely difficult, very difficult. I'm not saying impossible, but you would need to have a very strong resume and publications before you apply for radiation oncology. Okay. Right, I guess my time is done. I've already spoken for over an hour. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you, and I thank IMA MSN Maharashtra chapter for this opportunity. Sorry if I've overshot the time limit. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. So also we would request you that if you can cover a bit more about the device which you're working on, that how it works and what is the small principle
Right.
behind
So,
it, so that we can
okay.
have
So
an
that
idea.
sure. So this device has it works on the principle of elastography, and it has a piezoelectric crystal there as well. So whatever that normal breast tissue is supple, it's soft to firm, whereas when there is a lump, that lump is hard. So when we place the device over a lump, that sensor which is there, that gets bent, right? And that emits a signal which is then converted by the device, and you can pick it up as a spot on the app which we have created on the phone, right? So it's an instantaneous result when the device is it first calibrates with the breast tissue, individual's breast tissue. So everyone's elasticity of breast tissue can be different. So first calibration is done, and then when you keep it over a lump, that area would be more firm or hard, and you can find out that difference in hardness, and you can detect that lump. It usually takes around 10 minutes to scan both the breasts, and you get the data at that time only. Another major advantage is that mammography, some ladies say it is painful, so this is painless. The second problem with mammography is that in dense breast tissue, especially those who are less than 40, mammography is not useful. There, this device has found to be extremely useful. Even in dense breasts, it is picking up lump because it is first calibrating with the breast tissue. So it creates that baseline and then finds out the difference. Also, a mammography has to be interpreted by a radiologist, and it is very difficult to take radiologists when we are going for camps in the peripheries, when we are screening in villages. Here we can interpret the data on our own. So usually what we do is that my team, which consists of one device handler and an expert nurse, they go and they conduct these camps, and they keep on sending me the data. uh, on cloud I can access the data, and whichever patients where I find that there is a lump or I need to examine them, then we arrange a visit for them to the hospital, and I can carry out the examination and further tests.
So there is some question like how to reach to these startups and what can, matlab, how a student can be
So
incorporated.
I think so that should be a part of Kalpana 3, where I will help you out in that. I will reach out to these startups and get their founders on this platform for you, where they can talk about their startups, and they can offer these internship posts to whichever students who would like to help them out.
That would be a great idea, and we are
Sure.
really looking forward. So we will plan it out.
Sure.
So first, guys, if you have any other questions, we have next 5 minutes,
Dikshant, the
and
device name is iBreast Exam.
uh, yes. So if you have any more questions, you can ask that we have next 2 or 3 minutes for the questions, if any. Uh, Dikshan. Yeah. Okay, so I
All right.
guess
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me over. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you.
Sir, thank you
uh,
for an enlightening session on the right way. It was really great. Learned a lot.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, sir. We really learned a lot, and your journey was quite inspiring. And it was something that, yeah, even if like some doctors are doing this, and then we have that motivation, so that yes, we will get an idea. So, and also your YouTube channels and your Instagram, the posts are very inspiring, and we get to learn a lot. And anyways, if we are not learning anything, like we are not having books or something with us at in this present scenario, but still we are able to learn from you, and that's really helpful. And thank you so much.
Yeah, I
So
would just like to end by saying, I've seen over the years a lot of doctors cribbing about the profession, saying that we have to study so much and the pay which we get is much less, and we face so many difficulties during our career. But I guess all these things are in our hands. There are multiple opportunities out there, so you don't need to restrict yourself to your clinical practice. You can do other things, utilize the knowledge which you've gained over the years in helping in other parallel branches as well. And I feel that it should, all doctors should try to have an alternate source of income as well, so that we don't commercialize our practice, and we can keep our practice clean, and we you know um, enjoy a good quality of life as well. We don't crib that engineers are earning so much and we are not.
yes, so that is a
Okay.
great point which we should incorporate. Like even if we are doing a practice, but still we should keep some portion of our times for the voluntary service so that we all can work on.
Right, absolutely. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for having me over.
Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. So the next session.